Hello and welcome to Break Panel Sports. Joel texted me at 7 o'clock and said, John, you want to do an episode? And I said, sure. And so
And
here
here
we
we are.
are. And here we are recording one at about 7:21 on a Tuesday after some big time disasters for, I would say New York, but it's New Jersey. And I always go with that narrative. But Joel, how we doing?
Great. I mean, like I said, we originally planned to record like tomorrow, Wednesday,
Right.
and I was like, you know what? I mean, F it. Like, it's
Here we
like,
are.
yeah, like, are we doing anything right now? Screw it. Let's
No,
just go do it. Let's just go
I'm
record
here.
right now.
I was about to grab an ice cream sandwich or something, but now my real dessert is this episode of Break Panel Sports. We've got two teams to talk about today, the Jets and the Giants, the local squads, the Mecca, the Metro, all of the above. And here's the thing. So when you talk about New York sports, and I talk about it a lot, but New York football, really, you expect greatness. You
Yeah,
expect some of the best quality of the sport on the planet.
big market. Come on.
Big market. They've got all the money you want. They're some of the most valuable franchise in the NFL, the Jets and the Giants. But for some reason, the New York City will not allow a football stadium to be built, probably because it's too expensive. And the owners are saying, you know what? Let's play in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Let's make sure all of our New York fans can't get to the games. These are New Jersey teams. However, they are playing like New Jersey teams right now. Both teams just not playing well at all. We're going to start with the New York Jets right now. 27-6 is the final score with Los Angeles Chargers coming into MetLife Stadium at Monday night. Football, packed stadium as always. We knew a bunch of people there. And the Chargers, 14 points in the first quarter. Big kick return to start the game off. If you had him for a first touchdown or anytime touchdown, you won big because I forgot the name of the player that scored that kick return touchdown. I don't know if you can. I can
I don't
probably.
remember
I
either.
can. That's the problem. At the end of the day, we don't know who scored the touchdown because I forgot to be straight up with you. Darius Davis did not score the touchdown. Wow. I am just. It was Darius Davis. Yes, it was
It was
Darius Davis.
did not.
Shout out to Darius. Darius Davis. Have you heard of Darius Davis before today?
I've never in my life. I've
There we
never heard
go.
of it.
Shout out to Darius. No disrespect to Darius Davis, the number
Better than
125th
me.
pick, 125th pick in the 2023 NFL draft. That is who is taking down the New York Jets. And here's the thing. You take this kick return away, and yes, starts the game off with so much momentum. Momentum, yes. Momentum for this Charger squad.
Hmm.
The Jets only put up 6 points, dude.
Let's be real.
Well, what happened?
They were outclassed, man. They were
By the
outclassed.
Chargers.
Yeah, that was just insane to. First of all, Kellen Moore. I mean, that was good. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Oh, easily.
That that was really good. The thing is, like, you've been hearing about this Jets defense for like, oh my god, weeks now about how elite it is, and oh my god, if we just had a capable quarterback, a capable offense, Jets would be one of the best teams in the league. And unfortunately, they're 4-4 now. It's like I don't you I don't know what to make of this team. Only because, like, first of all, let's not. I'm not taking this away. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles. They beat the
Yes.
Eagles, man. Eagles were projected to go to the Super Bowl this year. They beat that team, and now you're losing on prime time to the Chargers, who, yeah, was a little bit of a struggle to see for a good portion of this season. And now I'm not here to say they're looking legit or anything. It's more about the Jets being like, well, what's going on here? You know? Because, like, Zach Wilson, it's like, okay, it felt like they were figuring it out. They were 3-0. He was playing like average. He was playing great, but he was playing okay. He was playing fine. Then you see what happens. Oh my! I think Zach Wilson had a fumble. Garrett Wilson had a fumble. I mean, it was a mess. It was an entire mess that happened yesterday. And before the second half even began, you could tell the game was over, man. Like,
Oh yeah.
it was just one of those things where it's like, why are the Jets on prime time next week? I mean, I understand Aaron Rodgers is he would have been there, but just, oh my god, just the Giants and the Jets. We'll get to the Giants later, but the amount of primetime games just tells you what the expectations were for both of these teams, and it's just crumbling, man.
It's
It's
beyond crumbling.
crumbling.
So
Yeah,
you kind of alluded that the offense wasn't all the problem. Is that what you're kind of? I mean, the defense. I know it says 27 on the scoreboard. I get
the
that.
defense was like, I don't know how much better they could have played. Is
They
what
played
I'm
for,
saying.
yeah. I just want to clear that because they played for not. This defense played amazingly.
They played
Yes,
great. There's
27
nothing wrong with the
points.
defense at all.
I mean, if you score 6 points, I don't care what defense you have, you're not going to win a lot of football games. They held the Chargers to 191 total yards of offense, not passing yards, the total yards of offense. And they just completely shut down Justin Herbert. They got 5 sacks, they forced 8 punts, and the Jets also led the game time of possession. They had the ball for 34 and a half minutes in this whole game. 34 and a half minutes. They controlled the ball for most of the game. They couldn't score a touchdown. They could barely get in the red zone, right? It's just embarrassing to see what this Jets offense can do. And you also
Listen,
look at,
I
yeah,
hate to be that guy because everyone's talking about it now, but it's like had Aaron Rodgers been there, would have been a whole different story. I'm just saying, like, I mean, like it sucks to say because we've just been saying it every single week that they lose, but it's like, man, if 12 was there or 8 now with Jets, but like
right.
if Aaron Rodgers was there, dude, I can't help but think this would have been a whole lot different. It would have
It
been
would have
different.
been it would have been much different. Now, my problem with the whole Aaron Rodgers would be the savior for this team is I know before the season I sat here and said I said the Jets are going to go out and win the whole dang thing. I know I said that. But when I watch a team allow 8 sacks to this, and granted, the Chargers have a great pass rush. That's one of their specialties. You have Bosa, you have Khalil Mack, right on this team, but
Mm.
they allow. I mean, not every sack is on the offensive line, right? Zach Wilson just couldn't get rid of the ball half the time. He's just backing up, trying to escape the sack because he escaped a lot of them at BYU, and he's just getting swallowed by Joey Bosa, by Khalil Mack, by this defensive line. Shout out to Kenneth Murray on there. At what
Well,
point,
that's your tuner, right?
yeah, shout out to the two. Have to shout out Kenneth Murray, of course. Trey Brown also played great for Seattle this week as well, even in a loss. Played great the last week as well. Before that, against Cleveland, I believe. So there is just such a difference of opinion here because on one hand, I sit here and say, yes, Zach Wilson is definitely the problem. He is the weakest link on this team is Zach Wilson, is the quarterback. But when I look at this offensive line play, and I'm sitting here going, could Aaron Rodgers really play behind this offensive line? Could he really?
that that was a concern going into the season. Keep that in mind.
Yes. And I didn't
Like
realize how bad it was until we watched it last night, until we watched it this whole season, really, as it started.
because when George Fant left the Jets, it was like no one really thought of it as like anything crazy, but it was like what really happened besides them getting the rookie that they drafted, Titman from Wisconsin. Is that
Right.
who it was? They like outside of that, it was like, well, how much has this offensive line really changed? Even in the preseason, and we were seeing in like Hard Knocks, like they talked about it a little bit. This offensive line doesn't look all that great. Or like it's not. Like, there's nothing to be impressed about with this offensive line. And even when they are fully healthy, Mekhi Becton is
Yeah.
not like anything crazy. It's really not. So, what would have happened if Aaron Rodgers was still here? I feel like they would have been at least maybe 6-2, maybe that. I don't
Here's the
know.
thing, though. When we went into the season and looked at this Jets schedule, this is the positive that I guess you have to bring out of it. We were not sitting here saying the Jets were going to be 6-2 by this point, right? They ended up beating Philadelphia. They ended up beating, they beat the Giants. They couldn't beat the Chargers, and we thought the Broncos are going to be all
What
right. They beat the
what teams
Bills,
did they what teams did they lose to? I know they lost to Kansas City. They lost to the
Dallas,
Chargers.
New England, and now the Chargers, and they
I
lost
feel
to
like
Kansas City, obviously.
if I'm being honest, I feel like Dallas is like their one loss that I feel like Aaron Rodgers could not even like
Nobody
change.
could have fixed that. They could have put Tom Brady back. I don't care who you put. They couldn't. That whole team imploded. And I put a good. I
So they
mean,
could have been like
that wasn't
seven and
even a
one.
bad Zach game either. At
Yeah.
that, I mean, it was. I mean, he threw 3 picks actually. I'm thinking of the New England game. That was just a rough game in general. And Zach showed his one flash against Kansas City, and they ended up losing that game as well. But
Mm.
at one point, do I also sit here and say, yes, maybe they win this game with Aaron Rodgers. Maybe they win on prime time. I mean, obviously, I think if you just look at it on paper, it's a whole different story
Right.
because, yes, this team would probably be, maybe they'd be five, maybe they have 5 wins. Maybe they would have just won last night. That's the only game I can really change. I think if the Chiefs game went the way it did with Aaron Rodgers, they probably beat Kansas City. So they could be a 6-win team. Yes, I guess I agree with you there. But at what point do I look at this team and you look at the rest of the season? They got the Raiders, Bills, Dolphins, Falcons, Texans as the next few. I think they're going to lose most of those. You know, at what point do you look at it and go, this is more of a chemistry and locker room issue at this point? Aaron Rodgers coming back cannot fix these problems. And I don't know. I can't put it on Coach Saleh. I can't put it on anybody because they fell into an unfortunate situation. Zach was not supposed to play. This locker room, especially after a loss like that, where you play that well as a defense and you have a 27 next to your name, even though you sit there and say, wow, we played our tails off and my offense couldn't move the ball. You have Garrett Wilson coming out after the game saying how frustrating it is to go back to the sideline and say, go to his defense and say, you got to go back out there because we couldn't get the job done. And what makes this situation so weird, it's also similar to the one in New York. Well, we're in New York already, but with the Giants, right?
The other
Is
side.
that there is no solution.
No,
You're stuck in this
you're stuck.
purgatory of having a incompetent quarterback. What do you
Do you
do?
do you think when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, and remember how like everyone was saying, oh, they should go out and go sign Carson Wentz, they should go sign Joe Flacco for crying out loud. Do you think any of those guys would have changed anything?
Nothing. It wouldn't have
Nothing.
changed anything
It wouldn't have changed anything.
at all. Maybe they would have one more win, right? But the
Sure,
locker
maybe.
room, I mean, the second Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles, and you weren't even there, but the entire energy around the Jets, the entire life around this team, everything just got, it was just sucked right
Over.
out.
It
Balloon
was,
was
it,
popped. You could just feel it. I mean, yes, they ended up winning that game against the Bills,
but season's
obviously,
over.
but even there was just this weird aura around it, right? It was over. And because you knew Zach Wilson had to start 16 football games for your team at that point. We obviously, if Carson Wentz just got picked up by the Rams, but he wasn't getting picked up by the Jets. He wasn't getting picked up by anybody. Matt Ryan, Phil, it wasn't helping anything.
Oh yeah, Matt Ryan. Yeah.
At what point, they had to give up, but you can't give up because you got to play the games. So it's a very, very weird situation in New York. Zach Wilson just hasn't showed up, hasn't been caught up to speed, hasn't performed. He doesn't look comfortable out there. He looks scared to throw the football again. He looks
Let me
scared to
ask you,
throw the football again.
at what point? Well, I feel like some people have already started doing this, but at one point do you start like looking into the job security of Robert Saleh? At
That's
what point do you?
that's the big question, right?
Because it's like
But
I can't help but think. I know we keep going back to Aaron Rodgers, but like I can't help but think he'd like there'd be no shot of him leaving if Aaron Rodgers was fine, right?
none,
But like
none.
the fact that Zach Wilson is remaining the quarterback, and even when it seemed like he wasn't capable of playing even like an average quarterback, he was still saying, "Nope, Zach's our guy. He's our dude. He's it." Blah blah blah. And he's like, "Are you even like? Are you watching the same games as we are?" You know what I mean?
Right. But here's my thing. I think that decision, I still think it was the right decision because
No, so do I.
you picked the
It's
guy
just
number two. He clearly had a ton of talent. He's just mentally not in the game. He
no, he's
has the
not.
tools to get it done. He just isn't present. So I think if Salah, I don't think Salah gets fired. I don't see him in any way, shape, or form not being the Jets head coach next year because they've won this many games with Zach. They've won this many games with this team, and the defense is playing absolutely lights out. The defense like Salah. That's all that matters right now, is the defense plays
Mm-hmm.
well. I don't think there's anything Salah could have done, and I think even if he is fired, I don't think it would be because of his performance. It's because of such an awful situation that yes, maybe he could have did things better, but the locker room was lost the moment that Achilles popped. There's nothing a coach can do in that situation because you were all in. It was you pushed
Yeah.
your chips all the way to the table with a seven deuce. That's what they did, and they just didn't get the hand that they needed. And there were so many draws that they could have gotten. It was like they had quad sevens, and somehow, you know, they just got hit with something crazy. Somebody had something better, and they got hit with such bad luck that there's nothing you can do. But if this locker room continues to get lost by Coach Saleh, then you might have to do a switch up. You just might.
Might have to, yeah.
Now, the real question, though, Joel, who's on a hotter seat? Brian Daboll or Robert Saleh, who we're now going to kind of transition into these New York Football Giants, who just have not. I mean, obviously, I always let you take the floor first about the New York Giants.
That, I'm not gonna lie to you. That's like a very tough situation because I feel like the situations are different because Brian Daboll, well, now they both lost their starting quarterbacks. Now they
Right.
both did,
And
right, for the
Brian
year.
lost the backup, too.
Right. And he lost the backup. So now they're kind of stuck with Tommy DeVito, rookie out of Illinois, who never thought he was ever he was undrafted too. That guy was
Yeah.
undrafted.
Shout out to Don
No,
Bosco as well, New Jersey kid.
no shot he ever thought that he was ever going to start for the New York Giants, especially not this year. But when you're asking who I think is on the hotter seat, I might have to lean a little more towards Saleh, and I'll explain why. So it's not so much as far as like Saleh's flaws; it's Brian Daboll's accomplishments. I feel like whatever happens this year, being coach of the year last year, leading the Giants to the playoffs with a very mediocre roster, overachieving and winning a playoff game against a team that won 13 games last year. I think that's enough for him to keep his job at least for this year. Now, if things don't change next year, yeah, he's going to be on the hot seat 100%. I think he kind of is. He's on a warm seat.
Right. I think they're both warm. I don't think either of them are on a hot seat at all.
We can have the discussion of him, potentially getting fired. But the problem with that is you went from we got McAdoo, we got Joe Judge, I'm blanking on his name, the guy who was on the Broncos for like a while.
What about Pat Shurmur?
Shurmur, thank you.
Cleveland guy as well.
Like the problem is just all of these head coach. This is like the fourth head coach that they have had in like the past like 6 years. It feels like It's you got to solidify the head coach, man. The head coach. I don't care what people say about the quarterback or anything like that. The head coach is like one of the starting foundations of your team, and I feel like him winning Coach of the Year last year. Listen, he can do it. Okay, things happen this year. Okay. Saquon Barkley to start the year, he wasn't 100%. Daniel Jones, he's out for the year. Andrew Thomas, arguably one of the best left tackles in the league, despite his offensive line being terrible. He's still one of the best in the league. He was injured for several games. I don't think he's still come back. He still hasn't come back yet from the hamstring injury. Like, there are multiple things that have happened with this Giants team that just feel like last year was just like a fever dream. Like it didn't even happen. Like there's no way that this team managed to make it to the playoffs last year, let alone win a playoff game. Now, I saw a quote from Xavier McKinney, safety for the Giants, the team captain, where he was kind of like expressing his frustrations about the coaches. I'm paraphrasing here, but he was frustrated with the fact that the coaches were not allowing the team captains to really like take a hold of like their side of the ball. Like when it came to play calling, when it came to decision making or anything like that, they really were telling the captains to take a back seat and allow the coaches to do what they wanted to do. And they weren't really listening to the captains at all, which Xavier McKinney did not like. Keep in mind, Xavier McKinney is going to be a free agent after this season. So,
he's gone.
That's another piece of your defense that's going to be gone. Leonard Williams, you traded him, he's gone. I mean, it's like this team is crumbling apart right before our eyes. And it's like, I don't think they realize that. And maybe they're looking to go in another direction, but the problem is you're going to get they are going to get like a top 5 pick, top 5, maybe even top 3 pick in this year's draft. Yeah. I don't see how you don't go for a quarterback now. I don't see we talked about this on our hot takes episode a while ago, whereas I was saying the Giants have a top 10 pick. They should pick a quarterback regardless of who's on the board. Even Marvin Harrison's on the board. Now that Daniel Jones is out, you absolutely need to take a quarterback. What he's dealing with, an ACL. This is the second neck injury. He had another neck injury a few years back. I mean, there's just nothing about this team that I say like, oh yeah, I want to keep that guy next year. We need to keep this guy. We need to make sure that he's for all I care. I mean, Saquon Barkley, if he wanted to get traded, he should have gotten traded. Should have happened. I would not have thought twice about it. I'd be like, okay, fine, whatever. We're rebuilding. There's nothing you can do.
Right.
It's a mess. I feel like this situation is a lot more complicated with the situation with the Jets.
Yeah, because with the Jets, it's a lot more simple because it's just, okay, my quarterback needs to get healthy.
Yeah, your quarterback.
What happens. You have an option at quarterback. Yes, this offseason for the New York Jets, it's just all in offensive line, make sure Aaron's healthy, and then you run it. And then you go out and run it and see what happens. But they'll still have a lot of their talent. They're going to keep a lot of their guys. They'll be fine. I'm not worried about the Jets. I am worried about this Giants team more than I'm worried about really any team in the NFL when you look at it, because I see a path and I see where the Giants are heading. and I hate it. I see the problem is I see nothing.
You
That's
you
my
know how
problem.
you know how bad it is? I feel like even if I mean I'm gonna be excited, obviously, but like even
Yes.
if the Giants were so bad that they get the number one pick and draft Caleb Williams, I still don't think they're completely out of anything. Where it's like, no,
No.
your team's still kind of screwed. Okay, so Caleb Williams is the quarterback. Okay, who's he throwing to? Darius Slayton, Wandale Robinson, Isaiah Hodgins. What are we talking about here?
You
What are
got
we
to hope
talking about?
Jalen Hyatt gets good. That's really all you
Jalen
can hope
Hyatt. I
for.
mean,
It's the
do you
Giants.
do you know how many times I see that man open and they're just not throwing
Many.
him the ball?
Well, because they don't have a deep ball quarterback. Daniel Jones is a nice deep ball. I would have loved to see that connection a little more. But who knows what's going to happen with him. So here's my problem with the Giants. It was a huge issue. And I will say this again and again. And Joel, you were happy when the Giants made the playoffs, right? You were happy when they beat Minnesota.
Sure.
You should have been terrified. That should have been the worst thing that ever could have happened to this franchise. If you miss the
Overrated.
playoffs, you're not signing Daniel Jones to that contract. You're
Yeah.
trading Saquon Barkley immediately. You are going into more of a rebuild mode. But because you overachieved, quote unquote, at 9-7-1, that was enough. That was enough for the Giants because I mean, I don't disagree with the bet, but making the playoffs was the worst thing that could have happened to the New York Giants because now they're stuck in a quarterback contract with a guy with a torn ACL who clearly is not ready to perform, who clearly does not play the quarterback position as well as you need him to.
Probably
You're going
played
to
his
lose
last snap
these
of the
defensive
season.
assets. He very well no he hasn't because he still has that huge. There's an out after next year, but
Oh yeah, the
I'd
next year.
imagine he plays next year. I don't see a world where he doesn't unless if they get Caleb Williams or Drake May, which I don't even see them doing because they might be in a position where they get the sixth overall pick, something of that variety. Caleb's going to be gone. Drake May is going to be gone. Past that, there's not a top 10 quarterback in this class. I'm sorry. Quinn Ewers is solid. I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback. Michael Penix is too old to be a top 10 quarterback. Spencer Rattler's not there. There isn't that. Joe
JJ
Milton's not that guy.
McCarthy.
JJ McCarthy is not a draftable quarterback in terms of maybe we could be a starter, right? I don't care that he's playing for Michigan and they're playing really well. But now the Giants are stuck in a cap situation that's awful, a quarterback situation that's awful, but they have a young defense. Oh, now they're going to lose pieces of that defense because they're frustrated with this season and the coaching. I mean, if you lose Xavier McKinney, Dory Jackson's not getting any. I love Deontay Banks, but this defensive line's solid as well. But they're just stuck. They're
You know what I was
stuck.
saying? I was saying this the other day. I was like, and it's so frustrating. If Dexter Lawrence was on any other team, he'd be a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year.
He could very well be. Yes, he
He
could
would
very
he
well be.
100% would,
He's
but
having a phenomenal season.
Because he's on the Giants, nobody talks about him at all. Kayvon Thibodeau is like I believe he's still top 5 in sacks on the year.
Probably. But they're
Has anyone
empty.
talked about
They're empty
it?
statistics at this point.
Has anyone talked about that? No one talks
No,
about that because your team is horrible.
they're terrible, right? So again, Deontay Banks was a phenomenal draft pick.
He's good.
This team, Joe Shane, I'm not putting any of this on Shane.
No,
He
I
did
wouldn't
what was
either.
supposed to happen. You're not supposed to just trade your star running back. You're not supposed to just give up on a quarterback that's proven that he can win games for you. But at some point, I mean, I think all Giant fans, I think even this front office saw that happen, saw you beat Minnesota, a consistent playoff choker, by the way, saw Daniel Jones play well, even though playing well, I guess, is throwing under 16 touchdowns. That's playing well. Then they had these rose tinted glasses because the Giants sat there and thought of Eli Manning and thought of those old Giant teams that all they had to do was get in and they're winning the Super Bowl. Right. That's what people were when the Giants made the playoffs that one year. People were saying that. People were saying, "Oh man, the Giants have done this before. It's just history repeats itself, man." Not always, and sometimes it shouldn't repeat itself. And this is a situation where it shouldn't, because sometimes you got to learn your lesson.
You know what's one of the things that really frustrated me the most about when they drafted Daniel Jones, and I'll still never let go to this day. The
Right.
only reason why they drafted Daniel Jones, who was projected to be like a mid-round pick,
Yeah.
late mid to late first round pick, they drafted him 6th overall because he had connections with the Manning family. He was like part of like the Eli Manning like camp or whatever. Like he has connections with
The Ole
Eli and
Miss
Peyton.
coached. They had the same old, same similar
That's the
coaching staff.
reason why you drafted him, not
He
because
was
he's a good quarter. I don't understand.
That
Well,
was their guy.
granted that quarterback class was kind of weak anyway, but still,
Yeah.
that was like, are you kidding me? That's the reason why you drafted him. That's insane to me. And I will say, Joe Shane's defense, I don't know if you heard about this. Did you hear about how the Leonard Williams trade even like happened? Did you hear about
Explain.
that?
I think it's a good trade. They got good
So
value for an older defensive lineman.
so they were talking to Leonard Williams on the day of the trade deadline. It was noon, right? And I'm not even joking here. They went up to Leonard Williams and they said, "Hey, we're hearing from a couple of teams that are in playoff contention, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of them are giving us pretty good offers. Let us know before 4 o'clock today if you want to get moved, and we'll move you. If you want to get moved, let us know. We'll do it. If not, we'll write out the season.
Right.
But if there's a team there that you like and you want us to trade you there, we'll do it because we like all of these teams. We like all their offers, and he ended up picking Seattle. He actually liked Seattle. There's a connection there with him and former Giant Julian Love.
Makes
Kind of made
sense.
sense as to why he would want to go there. Had a pretty good defense. I mean, this was before the Ravens game. They got crushed, but
Right.
still, I could understand why he did it, and I could understand why the Giants were good enough to at least like respect him to say, "Hey, there's a chance we might trade you. Do you want to get traded? Let me know right now, and I'll do it. If you don't want to get traded, let me know, and I won't. I won't even consider it. I'm sorry, I won't do it." And they did the same thing with Saquon Barkley, like weeks ago. They did the same thing, and Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, they sat down with Saquon Barkley and said, "Hey, listen, getting a couple offers. Do you want to get traded?" And Saquon said no. He
Right.
said he doesn't want to get traded. He said he wants to be here. I don't know why.
Why would you?
But he said he wants to be here. If he had not said that, we'd be talking about him probably in Baltimore by
Yeah.
now. He probably could be there. But
Even though Gus Edwards, Key mentioned that crew's playing really well. That running back crew.
there's
Don't forget about
there
them.
are there are guys within the Giants organization that believe in this team, even if it's not this year. They're saying, listen, we don't want to leave. This
No.
isn't like a crap show, if you know what I mean. Like, this isn't really like as bad as you think it is. That's what the players are saying. But now it's like, which of these players are actually going to stay here and say, like, we actually give a damn. We want to stay here. We got something here. We saw it last year. We just got to keep the momentum going from last year to here. And we just haven't been able to do that. We got to find something to help us get back on track. Is that going to be a Caleb Williams? I'll tell you right now, when they got killed by the Raiders and Daniel Jones towards ACL, I was looking up Drake May highlights. I was
You had
looking
to.
up
You
Michael
should have been
Penix
doing that a
highlights. I'm
while
like,
ago, Joel.
yeah, but I was mainly looking up Caleb Williams. That's really who I was looking
You
at.
need the number one
But
pick. I don't think this team gets the number one pick. I just don't
but
see
I'm
it.
like, this Drake May guy. Let me see how he's doing.
What did you
Let's see.
think of Drake May?
Drake May was someone who I thought doesn't know his own strength. He's someone that I felt like he's faster than Daniel Jones. I'll get that out of the way. I think he
Okay.
is faster than Daniel Jones. My problem with him was his arm strength and him knowing his own strength. I feel like he makes good ball decisions. I feel like he's like okay in that aspect.
Right.
I was watching a game. I think it was North Carolina versus South Carolina, and then I watched I think it was Virginia. I forgot what second game was, but in just those two games that I watched, to me it looked like Drake May. He relies on his team a lot. He relies on his team a lot, especially his defense.
Okay.
And once he throws that first mistake, like he throws that one interception, he just spirals out of control and
Right.
just ends up 3 interceptions, 4 interceptions, and it's like, oh man, like what happened here? But they end up winning the game.
Somehow, some
So,
way. Even though they
so
lost
like
some
there's
bad
some,
games. They did lose that
yeah,
Virginia game. So here's my thing. Okay, wow, that sounds like something I might have heard of before. You have a
Daniel Jones.
fairly that yes, but you have a fairly mobile quarterback from North Carolina that seems to be getting a ton of hype, even though his team isn't winning a ton of games. Wow,
Oh, that's
we
Mitchell
should draft him
Trubisky.
at number two. Exactly.
It's
It's
Mitchell
just it's just
Trubisky.
the ACC quarterback product. So I need to see Drake May do it on an NFL field. I need to see Drake May do it. I have to really dive into his tape, and that guy can throw the ball in a string. His accuracy is phenomenal. Oh my god, a quarterback that's mobile from the ACC that we might have to worry about his arm strength and his confidence that is in the ACC. Daniel Jones, Mitch Trubisky, those guys turned out really well, right? Hindsight is
Yeah, right.
2020. In this case, it's 2019. I'm going to name some players that the Giants could have drafted instead of Daniel Jones during this draft. Obviously, situation with situation, team needed a quarterback,
I
whatever.
I'll
Right
wait.
after, yes.
I was gonna say do this, and I will tell you exactly right now the guy that I wanted them to draft because I
All right.
know for a fact I know who I wanted them to draft, and
Good.
they freaking didn't.
Just going to casually name some good players.
Good.
This wasn't Joe Shane. Okay, no disrespect to you, buddy. You didn't do this. This wasn't your fault. Right after was Josh Allen. Josh, not the
There you go.
quarterback, but the linebacker who's still, really good.
That's what I
TJ
wanted.
Hawkinson, top 5 tight end in the National Football League. Ed Oliver, a great defensive tackle. You've got Rashawn Gary's on here. Christian Wilkins is on here. Chris Lindstrom is on here. Brian Burns. And then they picked Dexter Lawrence. Wow, cool. Jeffrey Simmons was also there. Garrett Bradbury. Who else was in this draft? Josh Jacobs was in this draft. Montez Sweat, who just got really good trade value, was in this draft. And the Giants,
And
the Giants ended up picking DeAndre Baker, by the way. So that is how this first round went for the Giants. They hit on Dexter Lawrence, but there were just so again, hindsight. Yes, of course, but they messed up. It's official.
Yeah.
Who did you want?
Oh, I wanted Josh Allen.
Well,
That's
yeah,
the guy.
everybody. I was sitting there saying
Wait,
that they should draft Josh Allen no matter what. He's the
because
guy.
I thought Josh Allen was going to the Raiders, and then the Raiders ended up picking Cleveland for Farrell.
Yeah, the Mike
Which
Mayock disaster class.
I don't know how that
Oh my
happened, but
god,
I was like,
Mike
oh my
Mayock was
god.
awful.
I was like, there's because at that point it was like maybe Eli Manning couldn't play like one more year, so it's like okay, it's
Yeah,
not. It wasn't crazy for them to not take a quarterback. So I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna be crazy. We're
yep,
gonna get Josh Allen. He's gonna be so freaking good. And the thing is, he went to the Jaguars, who at that time people forget at that time didn't need a linebacker. They
no,
didn't. They picked him strictly because he was the best player there. And it's like, why? Don't you see how bad that looks when a team who doesn't even need him drafts him? Like, that's just shows you how
yeah.
good he was.
And Josh Allen went to high school in New Jersey as well. Would have been nice. I went to
Yeah, come
Montclair.
on.
It would have been great. It would have been great, guys. Would have been great. But hey, you got to go get your guy, right?
Get your guy.
Get your guy mentality always works. It works I hear it every time a team makes a bad quarterback pick. And they say, we had to go get our guy. If you think that's your guy, you go get your guy. No, you don't. Don't go get your guy. Please stop getting your guy because a lot of the time when it's your guy, you don't really know who your guy is. You don't look at your guy's flaws. Okay. It's a really toxic relationship you have with your guy. And that guy was Daniel Jones. And they ignored every flaw. They ignored everything else they could have did. They
Yeah.
ignored all their options. They ignored everything. And now they're stuck, committed, and in just this absolute pit of disaster with Daniel Jones and this Giants team. Injuries are injuries, and they stink, and they're out of his control. But at the end of the day, now, what did the Giants do? I can't answer that question. Joel can't answer that question. You can't answer that question unless if you want to somehow hit us on Twitter at BreakPanelPod. And you know who can't answer that question? Joe Shane, because there's literally nothing you can do besides blowing it up. The Giants need to blow it up somehow, some way. Saquon should have been gone. Keep Kayvon Thibodeau and keep Dexter Lawrence. That's it. Those are the only guys that you need to keep and hold on to because this offensive line is awful. Disaster. You need to go figure out a way to get picks and go get guys later rounds and get some veterans and bring some players to this team. Major retools need to happen in New York on both sides. But here's my problem, Joel. You know what won't happen?
What?
Exactly that. They're just going to stick out this roster. They're going to let some of these young guys develop, mid-tier guys develop, and they're going to say, nope, that's enough. Because that's why This happened with Daniel Jones. They had Daniel Jones. They said, that's enough. Never
That's
settle for
enough.
enough in the NFL. You can never settle for enough in the
Can't do
NFL
that.
because you know who was enough? Alex Smith was enough in Kansas City. But the Chiefs said, no, there's something better out there. They went and got Patrick
Yeah.
Mahomes. And here we are. And now the Giants are stuck, and the Chiefs are going to go win another Super Bowl probably. But that'll do it for this episode of Break Panel Sports. I'm John, joined alongside Joel. What wasn't a disaster, unlike the New York Football Giants and the New York Jets. I don't know why they're not the New York Football Jets, but that's a question for another day.
Right.
Thanks, Joel, for coming on. Impromptu episode. Here we are. But that'll do it. We'll see you. Have a good one.
Later.